So today we're going to introduce Nikki. Nikki Green is a life and business resiliency expert who has been in the international business industry for over 20 years and is a 5-time published author. Bing, 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 bing. Nikki is an avid traveler, visiting 16 plus countries and completing 7 marathons and dozens of triathlons across 3 continents. Nikki has dedicated her life to assisting others reduce their fear and go after their dreams. Nikki's greatest passion is empowering people to reach their full potential. And without further ado, Nikki.
Hi, everyone. Well, we have kind of an intimate audience today, so definitely let's make this interactive. If you guys have questions as we go through, please feel free to just raise a hand, shout it out. I do talk fast sometimes. It's not just the coffee, but I'm from the West Coast, so we kind of have a different speed sometimes. But yeah, you guys are welcome to jump in at any time, and we're going to talk about pricing for value and how to get paid what you're worth. See how we use this setup here to move slides. There we go. So like I said, I do want this to be interactive. There's an exercise that we'll do kind of near the end, but you're welcome to take that and utilize it, you know, with your peers, with your employees, with your students. And of course, there's ways to contact me if you guys would like to learn more or collaborate on anything for your business. So, catch the delay. Because we have a mix in the room of both business owners and employees, I really want to talk about this in 2 different ways. So for business owners, this really is about our idea of how we ask for the price we deserve for our products and services that we sell every day. And so that's generally where my history of my career has come, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And then there's also the employee view, is how do I negotiate my salary and benefits to reflect the experience and effort that I've put in to get here. And so we'll kind of use this interchangeably because we have a mixed audience, and that way it'll work kind of for everyone. So who am I and why am I here? So as Dr. P said, I am a 5-time published author. I have done all of this since the pandemic. In the last year, I spoke on 150 stages as I was promoting my best-selling book, Chameleon Mindset. I also have a top-rated podcast, Stand Up and Stand Out, so we can do a podcast swap. And we've been featured in Podcast Magazine twice. So this is not how I started, though. This has been my transformation since I left my corporate career and my job back in Silicon Valley. And really, this has been a great transformation for me to start thinking about my value and what I bring to the table, because this is all new experience. But I didn't just learn these things yesterday. These are the things that we've learned over time throughout our careers. So if you guys haven't contacted me yet, you guys can grab the QR code on the back there. So where have I been and what I've been doing other than running marathons and traveling all over the world? So the last 20 years I've spent in Silicon Valley. I'm fairly new to the Chicago area. I moved here right before the pandemic as a part of my corporate job working at PayPal. So the last 20 years I spent really helping develop pricing strategy for many products and services that you guys use every day, possibly in your business, possibly at home. But I also did a lot of give back for nonprofits. It's been very important for me to help young children and to be able to especially give them like benefits for exercise, as well as encouraging them not to be worried about bullying and things like that. And serial entrepreneur. So this is the second business I've owned. My first business was called Purple Turtle Events. And I used to live in Miami, and I actually hosted, see, there you too. I've been there for 14 years. Oh my gosh. I managed 2 years in Miami. And the whole time I was working my corporate job, and I was hosting triathlons. So not only did I compete in triathlons, I also was a coach and did those too. So I've done a lot of things over my career, but I'll tell you, when I was little, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I don't know about you guys, but as soon as I learned that word in the 4th grade, I was like, be my own boss, like totally make my own schedule. That sounds awesome, right? But somewhere between that 10-year-old girl and then graduating from university a decade later, just too many other fears set in on me. And I do a lot of talks with folks graduating from university and entering the workforce, and also finding these same fears, that despite the fact that they're highly educated and very skilled, they are afraid to really be themselves. For me, I grew up with a single mom. We were living on government assistance. We were surrounded by scarcity mindset all the time. There was always this feeling of lack, that we just didn't have enough to make ends meet, to put food on the table, not just us, but even, all of our neighbors around us. And so that really ingrained a mindset in me that I was always worried about money. And many people relate to this. When we talk about pricing for value, it's not just about what we're asking for, it's what we feel we deserve. And so when I talk to people about this negotiation process, whether it's you trying to sell your products and services, or whether it's you trying to earn, your way, that money mindset is the first thing that we need to tackle. So I felt really driven, not just for myself and the things I wanted to do in my life, but really for my family too. I wanted to make sure that things got easier for them and that we all did better. And so really fear held me back from originally pursuing my entrepreneurial dreams. So it's funny, a couple months ago I was in Pittsburgh and I was giving a talk at a Women in Engineering conference, and I'm about to speak to their association again here in a couple of weeks. And I'm in a room filled with women that have multiple PhDs, are the only one in their field. They are the top of the top. And the number one thing they wanted to discuss is, how do I ask for a raise? It was really amazing. And just really seeing the lack of transparency to even understand what jobs can pay them. And so I'm really a big advocate for now some of the legislation that's coming out to really remove some of those barriers and making sure that that transparency is very clear when you're applying to jobs and getting promotion. Because if we don't know what we're missing and we don't know, we're going to continue to have discrimination and inequality throughout our workplace. So we talk about, in my book, Chameleon Mindset, being the chameleon. And sometimes people figure out, well, why would I want to be a chameleon? Isn't that a person that kind of blends in and they just kind of do what everybody else wants? And I actually read a scientific study that said nothing could be further from the truth. The truth is, when a chameleon is calm, when they're zen, when they're just having a good old day, chilling on the branch, they are green. They're their natural color. When a chameleon is hungry, they're not the right temperature. When something is really just not right in their environment, maybe they're trying to detract a predator or they're trying to attract a mate. Either way, what happens is that's when they change color. They're telling their environment something's not right. And so what I'm trying to coach people is, how can we be more like that? How can we be more comfortable with when we're not getting what we need? And how can we tell people when we're actually really chill and calm and we're having a good day? A lot of us go out into our environment and we just have this, mask of trying to be what everybody else wants us to be. And I did a lot of that in my corporate job. I felt like I always had to be what everybody else's expectations was. But in order for us to really see our value and ask for that value from others, we have to be a bit more transparent. We have to be a bit more vulnerable. And our uniqueness will be the thing that gets us there. So the more we can really showcase our uniqueness to others, then the better off we're going to be. And we're going to have flaws, folks. Things aren't going to go our way. We are going to have bad days. And it needs to be equally okay for us to go, you know what? Today's not a good day. Today, I need to take a pause. Today, I need something different from my environment, and actually asking for that help so that we can get to that next level. And so that no matter what that challenge is, we start crushing it. We compare that to the zebra. You guys probably know a lot of zebras. A lot of these folks, especially when I'm talking to young people, right? It's those folks with the Instagram perfect life, like my business is going all perfect and, my hair is never out of place. And they post their life as if nothing ever phases them. And in reality, a lot of these people are really struggling behind the scenes. And so really starting to get this into a more congruent way, I think is really important for all of us to start to get that mindset in the right place and to really start to earn and do all the things that we're possible of doing and not holding ourselves back. Everybody feel like they're ready to be chameleons?
Okay, is that a really popular book? My wife has that one. I've seen it a couple times. The chameleon one?
Yeah, it's, well, this one?
Yeah, is that a really popular?
It's getting popular. So it's also for sale at Anderson's Bookshop. I did an event over there like about a month or so ago. So, as I said, once I graduated from university, I was like, okay, well, I'm not quite ready for entrepreneurship. I guess I'll go do this corporate thing. But of course, knowing me, you know, I was all in when I was going to do it. So I started working in financial planning. At the age of 22, I started telling people how to retire. So that was fun. You know, they tell you all about diversification and all these things you're supposed to be selling in these portfolios. And I'm dealing with people from very kind of old school professions, AT&T and the phone company and the electric company there in California. And they had 100% company stock and they didn't see any problems with that. And so having to tell them that their loyalty to these companies is not a loyalty to their retirement was a struggle. And right about that time, we were kind of hitting the first big bubble burst in Silicon Valley. And it was past Y2K, all that money was gone. It's now 2001 and everyone's like, okay, what's our next crisis that we have to build tech for? And Silicon Valley came calling. So started working at a lot of these companies. And, you know, I did kind of the traditional finance route, which is what a lot of people do. You leave school, you're like, okay, I'm going to do accounting, you know, real finance. I'm going to do treasury. And I did those things, but they were kind of boring. I mastered them very quickly. And so what I really like to do is, that was the science of finance. And what I really wanted to do was something more creative. It just matched my personality better. So I started making up jobs. And thankfully, Silicon Valley let me do that. So one of the jobs I had was working at Microsoft, and I was working on their launch of the Microsoft phone. I'm sure everybody has a cell phone here, right? Everyone's got a cell phone. And how many people have Apple phones? Okay, we got a good like fit. And then how many people have Android phones? And then how many people have Microsoft phones? Right. So we were a late entrant into the market, and I had left my job at Cisco, and they needed someone to come and do pricing for this new product line for them. And so you guys know, when you go and get an Apple phone, it is very high priced. They're really going at that high end of the scale. And they were one of the first entrants really into the market, so they could do whatever they wanted to. But people thought they were crazy charging that much when they originally entered. So then Android comes in and they say, well, we're going to try to penetrate the market with volume, and we're going to go lower. But we also want to go into Africa and India and some of these other places where they don't have actually land phone infrastructure, so we'll get higher penetration. So as Microsoft, we're like, well, where do we fit? And many of us are like this, right? Whether we're talking about the products and services we do in our industry, you could be like, well, I'm the late entrant, or there's already a lot of people that do what I do. How do I differentiate myself? And is price the only thing I'm going to do? Or are there other things that I'm going to add into this to really be able to make the difference and showcase what I can do? Also, what we make as a living. It's like, well, okay, there's, you know, a bunch of us that do the same thing. So there's always a dentist, we always got real estate agents, right? But again, it's about differentiating ourselves and showcasing our value so that we can really charge what we're worth. So in the case of Microsoft, they actually went even lower. And so they charged $200, but there's a reason for that. And you think, well, I don't have the brand recognition of Microsoft. If they don't feel like they can get the value, you know, and they can't charge a high price, why would I do that? And it wasn't about market share. A lot of us think like we're just trying to get market share. Sometimes it's not about what we're doing today, it's about what we're building for tomorrow. So in this case, they were building a strategic alliance with Nokia. And Nokia is one of the largest phone providers, usually outside of the US. And it was really about building the Surface device. And so think about these things as you're talking about yourself and your value of either your work that you're doing or the products and services that you offer. It's not always about what I'm going to do today in this role. It's about what I'm going to do tomorrow and the next day and the next day after that. It's about your future potential. And so you really have to make sure that we're not limiting ourselves and our beliefs in ourselves based on what we've done and what we see others doing around us. The other thing is, when we go to make decisions, there's a lot of things that play into this, and this works for us as well as the products and services. When you go to buy a phone, again, the price itself is not going to be the thing. The salary you're asking for is not going to be the reason why someone turns you down. That's one of the last decisions of what happens. They're looking at all the value that you bring to the table. In the case of phones, if you have an iPhone, you're in the whole Apple ecosystem. You have music and movies and all kinds of things that you've already locked in. Or if you have an Apple, maybe you use open source. You've got YouTube and all these others. We have to think about what's our ecosystem. What are all the things that we're bringing to the table that is more than just what they're asking for in this job description or the one thing I'm trying to sell? The other thing is availability, right? What phone does my carrier have? If you're on Verizon and they don't have iPhones, then are you going to go through the pain of trying to switch over to something else? And usually not, right? Usually you're just like, okay, forget it. I'll just get whatever phone is there, unless you're really just so locked into that ecosystem that it matters. And that's about our availability as well. If we own our own business and we say, oh, well, I only want to be open from like 11 to 2. Well, if your clients are people with, jobs that usually work 9 to 5, then that's not going to work. So your availability is also a factor. And when we're applying to jobs, I know right now a lot of folks are still like, I want to work from home. I want to have flexibility. I want to be able to do certain things. That is also going to be a factor for you to make a decision, as well as the employer. At the very end, we're going to talk about cost, right? But cost is more than just the monetary value. It's about these value things stacking up, and what does the person actually care about that's going to be paying the price? So as much as possible, we're trying to alleviate pain before we worry too much about how much we're paying. So in the case of my business, I make an example. What's the ecosystem that I offer? It's obviously, you can read a book for like 20 bucks. That gets you started, or you can move up the value chain of other things that we offer. So think about that in your business and about the things that you do every day. What's the value chain of things that you offer? There's probably some kind of entry-level services, some consulting, maybe you show them a house or two, right? And then you move up the value chain to the more expensive things that you can do. But one of the big things that we bring to the table is community, is our network. Because most of us don't just do our jobs all by ourselves. We are connected to other people, just like we're connected here in the chamber. And then again, availability, and really what's that perceived value? What's the perceived value of ourselves? And are we able to represent that to potential customers and potential employers? The value starts making more of a point than the pain itself. So one of our challenges right now is we have 4 generations in the workplace. And we're definitely feeling that difference of opinion of how we work and what we should get paid for and what we're supposed to be doing as far as hours and availability. And we see this kind of negotiation happening in a lot of places. And so it's important that we understand this as we're having these discussions, because you need to know which generation you're talking to make sure you're, again, speaking the same language and you're on the same page. So we've got baby boomers, we've got Gen X, and we've got millennials and Gen Z now. So the job market itself is very different from what it used to be. And so this is another thing that the whole way that we get paid and compensated is starting to change. You also see more people moving into kind of a gig economy to do part-time work or having even side jobs on top of what they do. So no longer do we have, pensions and employers sponsor retirement plans. There's not really like long-term job security in a lot of things until you start really owning your career and owning what you're doing. Before, there was a ton of loyalty between the employee and the employer. And so that meant that you were going to gradually make more money as you stayed with the employer because you were both in it to win it, right? And there was always this clear linear path of advancement. You knew what was going to come next. but there was also slow technical advancement. And so with that, it was kind of like, oh, okay, well, I got my 4-year degree. I don't really need to do too much retooling, retraining to be able to move up. And those things simply aren't the case anymore. This one's a little bit of an eyesore, so don't worry too much about it. Yeah, go ahead.
Where do you think that kind of like this fell off the face of the earth, at least in the U.S.? Because it does seem, boomers, no pun intended, but I mean, they got it made, just kind of going through that realm and everything, like what changed,
Yeah, there was a lot of economic changes where people needed the freedom to be able to move jobs. And, whether that was relocation physically, because of maybe a spouse was moving as well. But the pension kept people really locked in. And so they stayed there even when there wasn't safe environments for them to be there. And there really wasn't an ability for them to speak up. And so as we started having also a more diverse work environment, then the needs of people, started to vary. Our ability to have 401ks really changed that. And that started, right about the Gen X time period. And that ability to move opened up our freedom to now have a varying career. So when we talk about, the baby boomer generation, it was also very linear. It was like, I'm the boss, you're the employee, I'm the teacher, you're the student. And so it was like, I say you do, and this is how work always works. But we were doing much more tactical things. So it was much more clear like how we were going to pay people and, what each person was doing each day, because the manager was literally giving you all those assignments. Now, as we move into the knowledge economy, it is dynamically different. The thing you need is information. It's your ability to collaborate. It's your ability to solve complex problems outside of your immediate experience. And so as millennials entered the workforce, this became more and more apparent. And now with Gen Z entering the workforce as a tech-first generation who has never known a life without a computer or a cell phone, they are going to be highly competitive, highly educated, and they have an ability to learn actively every single day. And so this kind of gives us our timeline of where we're at and where the value chain is moving to. So I talk about the knowledge economy like we're in the Matrix. But the knowledge economy really started as we went into the internet age. And no longer was our economy mostly based on building widgets and having things go out. It's still there. We still need to have food. We still need to get coffee in the morning, right? There is still some of that. But for the most part, the majority of our economic base is now based on knowledge and the flow of information and our effectiveness to actually supply this. So when we think about this, the old way of like writing our resume and telling people what we do, it really becomes antiquated, because that like, oh, I went to this school, maybe nobody ever heard of them, right? I got this degree. Now there's all kinds of new degrees that don't, and even whatever jobs are out there right now in 5 years won't be there. The economy is changing so rapidly that it's really hard for folks to keep up. And so really what we have to make sure is that we're putting in our value chain as much of that supply of knowledge as we possibly can. So we talked a little bit about today's job market, right? So we've got self-managed retirement, but we've lost some of that loyalty. A lot of employers, and we're seeing it definitely this year, a lot of layoffs and downsizing measurements during these economic shifts. They are very quick to be like, okay, well, this is a big expense on my balance sheet. Bye. I'll get somebody the next time around. They're also very slow to hire. And so this is creating a new situation where when we do have jobs and we're going to get out there to try to get new things, and a lot of people shifting what career they're in, we really have to think about what's all the value we bring to the table, because if we're trying to retool for a new career, we may not have a deep experience in this new thing. And a lot of these places are also hiring gig workers, contractors, consultants to just fill gaps in the meantime and to bring in that knowledge expertise. So how do we kind of take that consultant, contractor hat and wear it all the time when we're looking for work and we're applying for more raises? Because at the end of the day, what we need to start creating back again is employee loyalty and employer loyalty. and it's simply not happening. We're seeing people change jobs every 2 to 3 years, not because they necessarily don't like the company or something's going terribly with their manager. It's always for career advancement. When I talk to people, they're just not getting rewarded for the work that they're doing. But I noticed when my employees came to me, they came like this all the time. That during annual reviews, they didn't really have a message. They didn't really know what they had contributed. They weren't making those connections between what the company was doing overall and what they had contributed individually. And so I started building this process so that people could start thinking about these things is you can't just come for a handout. Yes, this is a paycheck job, but that's not how this works anymore. We have to really know what value we're bringing and be able to articulate it, because then I can go articulate it to my manager and we can go get everything approved and get, more compensation. Also, what we need at different stages of life is very different. Before it was very linear as well. It's like, okay, well, I graduated, I got married, had some kids, bought a house, did all the things. Well, now, if I go to someone in Gen Z and I'm like, we have great benefits for watching your kids. And they're like, we don't care. Right? They're like, I'm 25. I just want beer money. I want to go down. I want to go to a Cubs game from time to time. Yes, exactly. Exactly. So I think really starting to have even more a la carte benefits as well, so that the employees, when we come to the table, we are getting exactly what we need out of this milestone in life and have an ability to then get, as the next milestone happens, the next best benefit that's going to help us. Because even as a 22-year-old that was selling retirement plans, it was hard for me to think, man, I really should plan for retirement right now. It was more like I need to pay rent, my car payment, right, and have food. So these are kind of the changes that are happening in the job market that I'm seeing, and important for us that we start to get better at articulating our value. So we're going to talk about my first salary negotiation, which did not go well, which is why I know this one well. And I love giving this to young people as they're graduating to kind of do the exercise, because it's very hard when you go from an hourly wage where you're used to getting this kind of a certain amount of money, and other than maybe tips or something, you're not going to make too much more. So you're like, well, how much am I supposed to make in a salary? So I did the math. I was making $15 an hour at the time. I was like, okay, times 40 hours, times 52 weeks, that's about $30,000. I was living in California, and actually when I started working at Cisco, I moved back to my hometown in Reno, Nevada. And I was like, hey, there's no state income tax. So I'm actually going to take home more money. I must be a genius. No one ever figured this out before. So I agreed to my $30,000. I was like, I've got benefits and a 401k and vacation and all these things I never had before. And I see so many people graduating having this same discussion. And you're like, I must have done it so good, and I'm so happy right now. And then my first salary mistake. Only 1 month after I got hired, 2 solid bros were hired. Two guys were hired, fresh out of university as well. They had less school than me. I already had an MBA. They had just a bachelor's. So I was like, okay, cool. Guess that MBA was totally worth the time. They also had less experience. I was working in the international finance department, and so one of the important qualifications is that we spoke languages. They spoke one other language fluently, aside from English. They spoke Spanish. I speak 4. And so their starting salary was $33,000. And you're like, it's not that much. That's 10% more for less qualifications. When I found that out, you can imagine how happy I was, going, how did this happen? How did I miss the boat when I thought I did the math? I thought I understood. And isn't this process fair, right? We're sitting one desk next to each other. We should understand that we make a certain amount based on paper, right? What my resume says I'm able to do. And that's not the case, because there's a lot of subjectivity that happens in the hiring process, and these 2 guys knew each other. So when one asked for more, the other got more. So this is where this transparency and pay is really important so that we can be more educated as we go and ask for what we deserve every single time. Because without it, you're flying blind. You're doing, girl math, as there was the trend going around. And of course I said never again. And then I found out this was a very good learning lesson, my first job and my salaried career. After 6 months on the job, what I soon discovered is that I was actually a contractor. I didn't actually work for Cisco. And that was never really clear because everyone in my department was a contractor. But after 6 months, I saw some other people on a different shift, like celebrating and high-fiving and buying boats. And I'm like, I think I missed something. I think I definitely missed something. What I realized is that they were actual employees of the company. So not only did they make more money, $45,000 to my 30, in the same office, in the same desk, doing the same job. They also got stock options, they had better benefits, and they had just received their year-end bonus. And trust me, if they could buy a boat, that year-end bonus was not small. So I was like, okay, we have got to do some math on this for real and really start to understand how is this happening? And I talk to so many people that get their first jobs and they just never push back. They never know what to say. They're always so meek and they're like, well, I don't know, the job description said this, so I'm just gonna ask for that. And instead of really, really representing yourself and always declining that offer and pushing back to something better, we are all worth more and we need to be able to say that out loud.
So did you ever get your pay raise?
I got that and then some. I got that and then some. So the shift there in Reno was ending and they gave me an opportunity to go back to California. And so I said, okay, I'm not screwing this up, right? I'm gonna move in a lateral job, but it's cost of living. I gotta go pay that state tax again. So I'm gonna get another role. But as soon as my feet were on the street, I said, I'm gonna start interviewing and I'm gonna start talking to managers and I'm gonna start understanding what other roles are available, what they pay, what the leveling is, and am I able to get something else? And within 4 months of being back in San Jose, I had a new job and a salary increase. So within 1 year, I had already increased my salary twice. And I continued to do that path and basically getting a promotion or a raise every 12 to 18 months I worked. I never sat still. I never just let people tell me what I was going to make. I said, there is opportunity out here. All I have to do is raise my hand and start to say what I see as opportunity and not just wait for people to tell me what the job is. So I created roles that didn't exist. I solved complex problems. I created entire departments. And so this is where we have to start thinking above and beyond what we bring to the table, is that there is so much more. And by the age of 28, I actually received a double promotion. Everyone goes, what's a double promotion? It's not a thing I've ever heard of, because it's not. I actually skipped an entire level. And so normally you kind of go sequentially through the levels to get raises. And I had created such an amazing department and done things that no one had ever heard of. I went to the board of our department and I said, no, you're going to give me a double promotion. We're going to go up 2 levels because that's the way things really work. And they were kind of hesitant and they said, that's not really how things work, Nikki. I don't know why you think this is how it goes. And so they started to describe these bell curves to me. And so, so essentially what happens in a lot of places is we're trying to figure out how much people should be making. We have these curves, which are scientific in nature, and say generally, in the average, most people should fit in the middle. There'll be a couple of outliers, at the beginning and the end. And as we go to each level, there's going to be a bit of an overlap because you're still kind of learning the new job and at kind of the high level of the previous job. But my argument to them was, you have hired nothing but the best of the best. This is Silicon Valley, kids. These are all the people that are the top of every university, not just in the United States, in the world. You guys can't possibly believe that these people fit in a bell curve. That's not true. And I see it in this room too. There's so much potential and we are not the average. We are above average. We are here trying to do better. We're trying to make connections in our community. We are trying to go above and beyond just what we do every day. So I started arguing about that overlap. And I said, look, Well, if you say I can only earn this much, why not at least make me the same level and I'll take that salary. I'll stay at that bottom. But why would I do that? If it's not really for more money, and no one knows what your leveling is, so that part doesn't matter. What mattered was all the other benefits that came with it. It was better stock options. It was higher bonus percentage payouts. It was even better benefits that you were eligible for. And so that whole total package of compensation is important. And these are, again, the things we think about when it's all the things we bring to the table and what we're trying to get from others. As we talk about our products and services with our customers, it's not just the service I'm trying to provide to you right this second, it's all the things I'm going to be doing for you. And so let's make sure that we're getting compensated for all of those activities, not just like this is a one-time transaction and we're done with each other forever. So I won't go into this one too much, but this is just another point I make when I do a lot of work with engineers is as you go through these levels, there's also a pivot shift that happens. And I'm sure many of you guys have experienced this as well. When you come in at an entry-level job, it's very much those tactical skills again. It's what you've learned in school, and you need to be very much practicing that every day. And a little bit with, can you get along with folks, right? Like the kindergarten version. And then as you move up to associate and manager, those things flip. So what we used to call soft skills are now called power skills. And so those power skills start to become more important. How well do you collaborate with others? How well do you network? How well can you take the connection between the overall vision of what we're trying to do with what you do day to day? And then as you become a manager, how can you step back from doing as much of the day to day and really highlight and give others that, best next step for them? And so this is an important shift as we also talk about what our value is, because those schooling, those degrees, all that stuff starts to matter less. And so the sooner we're moving up those chains, and especially for business owners, most of what we do is that kind of stuff. It's getting new clients, it's building, new relationships. And so you have to really spend more time on that than anything that you did before.
I have a question. In the beginning, you were talking about mindset, and I kind of did that in Chicago, not Silicon Valley, but worked for tech companies. Same thing every 2-3 years. Because my wife's staying home with 3 kids, I was like, I could make 20% more.
Yeah.
And I've done it. Every 5 years, new job. But I remember one manager was like, "Well, we can't give you a 25% cut of your profit. Everyone else has 20%." And they came back and like, what we can do is every quarter we can give you that 5% extra. So they changed the rules for me. And then the manager came back when I got hired and goes, I really appreciate you doing all that. Like, it shows your self-worth. And in my head, I was always like, no one can give you a penny more than you think you're worth. And it's just the way it is. And Hollywood, I'd hate to see how they work, because some of the guys or girls that lead the set will get millions, and then other people get $275. So
Yeah.
it's like, they don't know what they're doing. It's amazing.
Yeah,
the salary works.
There's a huge disparity, but equally, and there's always those sayings like, oh, you're not supposed to talk about money, right? Like, we're not supposed to share it. But at the end of the day, that has only benefited the person signing the paycheck. It really doesn't benefit all of us. That transparency can only help us be more educated and also, make things more equal in the market. This is why we have people, there's really a disparity between people that are making these hourly wages and people that are making salary, because it isn't that one-to-one leap. That's not really how it works. And there's not a lot in our economy that's in that middle space, which is why people have gone to some of these gig jobs, because they need to supplement. And then that gets really tough. Now they're working 60, 70 hours a week, and are they really doing any quality work on either side? Probably not, right? And so we need to be more cognizant of this, both as managers and as employees and business owners, of how can we try to make this more transparent and have more people, make equitable amounts of overall benefits. And I say this because, again, I don't think that just the salary itself is important, because then we get so wrapped up in the material aspect of it. It's like, at the end of the day, do I have a roof over my head, a car that doesn't break down, and food on the table? Yes. Do I have time to spend with my friends and family? Do I have time to do things I like to do? Yes. Then that's really the base of what I need to earn. Everything else is about that future potential. It's about leaving that legacy. It's about making sure if I get sick, I can be taken care of. And so that's where, we've got so much placed on just that number that we earn. It's not as important as that. It's about the whole ecosystem of, what value we need as well to live our lives. So I have some worksheets on the table for you guys. You're welcome to do them here kind of while you're thinking. I think there's a few extras if you'd like to bring one back to share with a friend or a family member or kids or your class. And what I like to change the conversation about is when we're thinking about the value we're bringing to the table, whether in our business or in our career, is how much have you invested to be you? You've probably invested a lot of time. Even if you've retooled and changed careers like I've done, all of those things didn't just go out the window. They're still there. And they are skills that you never know when you need to pull them out of the closet and use again. So the first question is, what is all the school? What is all the schooling that you've done? And that could count as a lot of other things too, right? Maybe you also wanted to learn an instrument and you went to music school or, had a guitar teacher for a while. One of the best engineers I ever met was an incredibly talented musician. He was an okay coder, but he was a really good musician because what he could do at the end of the day is he could visualize what the end product was going to look like. He wasn't just tactically doing the coding to, make sure it passed the test. He was trying to make sure that what the finished product looked like sounded beautiful, looked beautiful. And so he was able to bring a whole nother level of expertise, which had nothing to do with his schooling and what we hired him for. Another one was a filmmaker, same thing. He made just visually stunning pages for people to interact with that just used innovative ideas and techniques that probably no one would have thought of. And so think about all these things of not just your schooling, but other certifications. When I went to go do financial planning, I did a CFA and a Series 7 and a 66 and all these other licensing things that not only did I have to pass the test, but I had to study, right, in order to get there. Then there's the people aspect, which again starts to become more and more important. And how many people have you either mentored or managed or coached? There could be lots of different varieties. I coached volleyball for many years. I coached triathletes. So coaching is also a form of mentoring and managing that you bring to the table. Because now again, you're talking about mindset. You're talking about physical balance in the stress of doing things. Managing, some people think, oh, well, no one's ever given me a manager title. I never waited for anybody to give me a manager title. You can help manage anybody. You can always be a leader in your community, in your church, in your home, right, in your neighborhood. There are so many ways to lead that are things that we're bringing to the table that we think, oh, well, I didn't go to some official school and get a certificate. It doesn't count. All of these things count when we're talking about the value we're bringing. And like I said, hobbies. What other training and things have you gone through that are hobbies that could potentially help you in your business? Maybe I randomly started learning how to do websites when I started my first business. I didn't know how to do websites, but it was another skill that just helped me understand when I was talking to engineers and doing things, some of the language that they were speaking. And so all these things kind of come into play, and there's many more questions we do in our kind of in-depth one, but I just want people to kind of start thinking about when you go to the table for these negotiations, for these discussions, you're not just talking about this one-time transaction that's happening right now. You're bringing all of these things, all of this value forward, and these are the potential things that people can have with you. Why I talk about this is, throughout my career, you guys have probably heard this one before, is we're supposed to make SMART goals. SMART goals in our career and SMART goals in our business. And, it's very measurable and analytic and timely and all these things. And I hate that. I spent a lot of time doing it, obviously, in finance. And logically, I understood the science of it. But I really felt that it wasn't getting us to where we needed to be. When I started doing pricing strategy and coaching some of the sales team, how to talk about the pricing with the products, with the customers, I saw a huge difference in what the sales teams were able to deliver. And it wasn't because they knew the products better. It was because they had more confidence in themselves and they dreamed bigger what was possible as they were talking to people. And so, yes, we would set these SMART goals for the sales team, and some of them would just blow those goals out of the water every time because they did something which I call the art of pricing and negotiation. They didn't just rely on the numbers. They didn't just rely on what factually they had sold this stuff for to somebody else, or they didn't just rely on what the person told them their budget was, right? Even with salary negotiation, here's our budget, right, for what I'm supposed to do. Forget those things. We are making a new world, we are dreaming a new dream, and we're gonna do things differently. It's not until we start pushing those envelopes and sort of thinking of them differently and really representing the value that we're bringing that you start to see it differently. If we always put ourselves in that box, if we always put ourselves in that bell curve, then we're never gonna get to that real next level. And as we had that talk a couple weeks ago on AI and some of these things are changing in leaps and bounds. And so it's up to us to change in leaps and bounds as well, because there's just certain things we're not going to need to do anymore. There's going to be things that will be taken over, just like we've learned. You don't have to go walk over to the wall to go get the phone and bring it and then use the long cord to get back. It's right here with you, right? Our phone is as much of a computer as this computer is. Things are going to continue to change and grow in our businesses, and the more we can adapt and learn those things and bring those things to our clients and to our business, the better off all of us are going to be. So I really love this one, mostly because I like trying to do art, but I'm not actually good at that either. But so going back to kind of our matrix view and talking about promotions, that a promotion is for future potential. We think of it as, oh, I'm exiting this level and I'm entering the next, but that's not really what's happening. The same thing as when you start a job for the first time. They're betting on your future potential of what you can achieve. And it's for all that experience you put on that page and more, all the things you've learned, all the relationships you've built. And especially now with the importance of communication and networking, the network you created really elevates your ability to solve problems quickly, because there is so much change happening so rapidly, you're not going to know it all. It's not like we have time to go get another 4-year degree in these things and come back. We were talking about the kids using the Google in the morning and learning. They can go so quickly to go find information, hopefully factual information. We keep working on that.
This is so important. Never taught you that in college.
No.
And this should be a focal point for every student.
Absolutely, because
I agree.
All the thousands of dollars we spent on college and not one thing about this.
it's really difficult, because it's like, okay, well, here's the syllabus, here's when the test is, here's the book, here's the exact chapter you need to read. All you need to do is memorize this for that period of time, then you can let it go, right? And that's not really how life and work is. Life is an open book test. You can look it up. And the sooner you can find the right answer, the sooner you have someone you can call that may be able to help you, the faster you're going to be able to solve those problems. And this doesn't mean being a super extrovert like me. It means a lot of things, right? Even technically, this is how AI made leaps and bounds during the pandemic, because people were just generally interested in it, and they did it as side projects, and they knew each other, and they collaborated. And so because they had all this extra time, all of a sudden AI just burst onto this scene following the pandemic. So think about these things. Think about who you can learn from. Think about how you can continue to educate yourself and learn different perspectives, and stop avoiding these conversations that we're not supposed to have about money, politics, religion, whatever all the things are, because it's important that we understand the different perspectives. We don't have to agree. We just have to know that when we need that information, we can go and rely on somebody else in our network to be able to solve the problem that we have in front of us more quickly than we did before.
I'd love to expand on that. So in my experience, I really like what you're saying. I have found being more authentic, like so I'm a realtor. So when it comes down to it, when we're talking about politics, religion, all that sort of stuff, it's supposed to be very taboo. But at the end of the day, in 2020, when everything was so divisive, I finally was able to like speak my truth and talk about where I really landed. And even though I may have lost a small group of individuals who don't agree with what I had to say, the people who shared my beliefs, and I literally doubled my business that year. Like I went from like 8 million to 15.8 million, just because the people that you advocate for will advocate for you. And if you share the same moral or same opinions,
Right.
they're gonna trust you with their friends, their family, everyone that's important to them. So I think it's really important that people should be more, because like if you're not authentic, I feel like somebody's gonna feel that vibe from you.
Right.
Like it doesn't matter what you're hiding, but if you're a little bit fake, they're gonna feel that.
Right. Well, and it's about building that community. If you're just in an echo chamber of your own opinions all the time, you're not really growing and learning either. And so if the people left, that's also them being incredibly closed-minded, right? You don't have to agree. You don't have to agree. You just have to listen and learn and see a different perspective. It's one thing I love about traveling, about attempting to speak other people's languages, right? It's not easy feats. And speaking another language, one thing I like to say is it's not just about converting the words. It's about converting the whole meaning. When you speak in another language, when you dream in another language, it's very different. And so there's a lot of contextual stuff that you may be missing. And so the more we can open our minds about some of those things, then you never know what problems we'll be able to come together to solve.
Nikki, this is a really good eye-opener actually. When you hire people, like last month I had somebody, so how many years of schooling? I could go on hobbies and what degrees I have and what certifications. She has like an associate degree. And hobbies, playing video games, mentoring video games. I taught somebody how to play a video game, right? And what else? Certifications, probably in Pokemon world, you have some kind of certification. So it's like, okay, all right. And you're asking for more and you wanted to make more money, but you have to collaborate. You have to learn how to network, meet new people, how to bring leads. And it's just much more than what it says, but it's pretty good. I'm going to take a copy and
Definitely.
do it as we hire more people.
Because we need more well-rounded people. I mean, if you're not well-rounded, you're hiring for that moment, but as your practice grows, as they grow, are they going to stay in the role? Probably not, right? You have to make sure that there's going to be an equal opportunity for growth on both sides. And so the first time I did this exercise, I started listing off all sorts of crazy stuff that I've done. But these ones are kind of fun because it does really also show you what's possible. It's funny because someone wrote an article recently on Medium and they were complaining about somebody that they were interviewing. So they were interviewing for a sales position. And they're like, oh, these kids today, they're all the same. All they come in is ask for more money. They're kind of rude. They're not respectful, right? And we get this kind of, gripe about the next generation. And, as he's talking about it, he's like, all these candidates are all the same. So when I gave my comment back on the article, I said, well, has your hiring practice changed? Because you might want to rethink that. If you're getting all the same candidates, it's because you're looking for the same cookie cutter. Until you change what you're looking for, you're going to keep getting the same results. Until you stop thinking that the name of the school, the years at that particular school magically solved every problem and you want them to come ready baked to go deliver, that's not realistic in this economy. That's not realistic with where we're at. You have to really start rethinking what important experiences around. My boyfriend is a 20-year Navy veteran, and there's many veterans who have lots of different life experience, which isn't going to reflect, on some of these kind of traditional resumes. And so the more that we can hire people with these diverse perspectives and experiences, the more robust our workforce is going to be.
Getting along is key.
Exactly.
My dad graduates from Harvard. He has all the qualifications. He gets all these jobs. 30 years later, I find out he was fired from every job because he couldn't control his temper. Interestingly enough, my junior year in high school, I had no idea why, because I didn't find out until after I got out of college that he was fired from every job. Here's this guy that could read a book, speak a language, play the piano, play the banjo. He gave me the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and the Power of Positive Thinking. And I memorized everything in that book.
Yeah.
And I started my own business.
There you go.
So he gave me a lesson. He didn't tell me. He finally confessed what had happened. Years later, when one of his fellow he worked at Sylvania Electric in New York City, and I went to work for him for a summer job. They took me to lunch and told me everything, and I'll never forget. the power of getting along with people.
It's really important. And like I said, it's not about knowing everybody and being nice to everybody falsely. It's about genuinely connecting with people and building that long-term relationship and rethinking about our.
Question.
Okay.
So you touched on it a little bit. So, my wife has been working for 7 years and clearly needs a pay raise, but she's very shy and love her to death. And women in general, even my sister found out at Chase Big One, working there 20 years, she was getting severely underpaid.
Mhm.
So what laws are in place in Illinois where man or woman can just be like, let's everyone get paid, here's what I'm worth off that. And someone's going to give you when you look for a job, it says, hey, you get paid X, right? Well, that's not really negotiation because they're just saying this is what it is. So then the next question is like, if you know legally what they're going, what's your next move? Do you say, well, from a negotiation standpoint, if you leave with a price, they're going to come lower. So you kind of want to be last in per se. So that's a part I'm trying to figure out here to then convey to my wife. I think she's reading one of those books. I'm like, she's not gonna listen to me, by the way. I'm like, Liz, I've only done this, every 3 to 5 years, just got pay raise because I had a family. So I just want to try to figure out how I can help her out with legally from the standpoint of the company. What do they get paid? And she's account manager. She's dealing with the clients.
Yeah.
So I know the self-worth in that,
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Well, and a lot of it has to do with mindset. And like I said, women especially, we've kind of taken a back seat because, again, that scarcity mindset was in place. We were told there was one promotion, there was one board seat, and likelihood was that we were outnumbered. In most of the rooms I sat in, even in, sort of forward-thinking Silicon Valley, I was generally the only woman at the table. And so that creates a difficult kind of dynamic that you're trying to bridge. Going through these exercises are important. But the Pay Transparency Act is definitely alive and well here.
Can you explain that a little bit? Because I have no clue what that is.
Yeah, so as we're posting jobs, they have to give you what the salary range is. And if that's specific to the geography, like San Francisco is ridiculously expensive, New York is expensive, they can say that, well, only in these areas can you earn this, and you need to be physically living in that, again, covering kind of the remote work thing. And so even if they're like internally applying for a job, they're still required to tell you the salary range.
They're required, but how do you ask that? Like, hey,
You just ask them for the salary range. I mean, recruiters will generally ask you as well when you're applying for jobs now, what's your salary requirement? I never tell them.
That's what I was gonna say. That's weird too, because that's like, what are you making now? What does that matter?
Yeah, you would never negotiate in a way of be like, well, I'm going to tell you all my business and then maybe you'll give me some back. No, definitely, because the company itself should have a range, right?
Can you find that without talking to your boss kind of thing?
I would talk to HR.
So sometimes HR, they should tell you, they should have published rates. If not, you can also do market research on LinkedIn, Glassdoor, and find similar jobs in the area to be able to find those salary ranges. But yes.
Yeah, you just have them, or you could just,
Glass-
LinkedIn,
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn right now is pretty transparent on a lot of them. There are some that aren't. You just type in what you're looking for. And,
They're also beginning to
Yeah,
use
Glassdoor as
AI so that even if that job didn't tell you the salary range, you can find out in the area what the salary range for that job should be. So they're trying to make sure that people are as compliant with the rules as possible. Some states still haven't enacted that, but Illinois is definitely getting forward on that.
They're doing the thing where it's actually a neighborhood company. They're non-for-profits. They help not-for-profits make more profit, mailings and all that stuff.
Yeah,
So it's kind of like, oh, we're not-for-profit. They're not not-for-profit, but it's like,
yeah.
people.
No, at the end of the day, we all have to make money and we all have to put food on our table and just cost of living. So this is again going back to kind of that balance of science and art, right? Is that cost of living, we were talking about this earlier, gas has gone up, food has gone up, and insurance rates and everything else has gone up. So even if you also go with some of that factual stuff of like, I just deserve a COLA, cost of living increase, right? That alone, plus, the value of service that you've gone. And honestly, I tell people, go interview for other jobs. Like, even if you have no intention of getting another job, just go and talk to other companies so you know what you're missing. And it also helps you, again, build that confidence up because companies love to just put you in that box and you're back down small and you need to just feel that value again so that when you go back to that table, you have evidence that you're coming forward with. It's not just like, well, I think I'm awesome, so you should give me this.
And you have to have the attitude, and I'm talking about when you're currently working a job, I'm not a new one, but you have to have the attitude where, I could walk too, in the back of your mind. Is that kind of the?
You have to,
motivation?
and that's why I think interviewing before you have those discussions is good, because it gives you like some level of options. And if, we're in a bit of a recession and there's not as many jobs available, then it's still like, okay, well, but I deserve at least something. And so figuring out what that negotiation is, that it should be a negotiation. It's not just usually a hard yes or no. It's, what other benefits can we offer that are really critical to me in order to make this happen?
I feel like healthcare is the same way though,
Yeah.
not-for-profit. I worked for Elmhurst Hospital, and a couple of weeks ago, they're like, oh, here's your 50-cent raise. And you're literally dealing with like people's lives, you're
Right.
titrating blood pressure support meds, you're, doing ACLS.
Yes.
So I felt like that was a big slap in the face, and that's kind of when I was like cutting ties with that.
And I'm sure you're working more and everything, like you were saying, I mean, past year and a half, 2 years, because, I had 3 kids, everything I think costs twice as much.
Everything's gone up, so
Yeah.
it's like they don't even factor that in, and I don't know. It's like I don't want to complain, because the analogy you used earlier, like like these kids just want everything, but I mean,
I
you're
like it.
averaging like
I like it.
I
man.
wish
I
a
love
lot
this
of life,
generation.
but it's good. It's standing up for the things that we should have been
Yeah.
standing up for a long time
Right.
ago.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so I always empower people to say, no, we do
Right.
need to get what we deserve, but let's not make it just super like monetarily based.
right,
Like
yeah.
there's an ecosystem of like what my lifestyle needs to be like and what experience I'm bringing to the table. I deal with a lot of teachers right now because a lot of teachers are like, man, like, and it's like, well, this is all we pay teachers.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it is what we value, is what we pay for. If we value these professions, if we think they're important, we will find a way to fund those things and pay them what they're worth. And as people continue to mass exodus from these jobs, nursing, I deal with a lot of folks in nursing as well, that then we will have to start paying more and they will be under the gun to pay it. And they still may not get as qualified or as caring people. They're going to get people that are just kind of maybe going for the monetary part. So I think we can all help shift that. When I went and traveled to Cuba, everybody I knew had a college education. They played instruments. Obviously, they spoke multiple languages, and we talk about some of these countries as if like they're not doing well, and yet they have such this breadth of experience. And so if we give people that same opportunity here, that through schooling and opportunities for hobbies and just a better lifestyle, then there's more opportunities to come. So we need to help kind of raise that whole thing together.
Yeah, I think lifestyle, it comes down to that, it's coming home burnt out all the time. It just gets to your family, to you. I mean, that's.
Yeah, it all rolls downhill. And this is something that I talk about a lot with folks is that if we're so stressed at work, and we come home and then we're not happy and then we stress out our spouse or our kids and then they go to school and they are mean to their teacher and the teachers, and our spouse has to go to work and, then they're having a tough day. All of these things play in. So we can have that environment where like we actually have a good day at work and we can come home and talk about it and we're honest and open about like what it's costing us to live and be able to have an open adult conversation with the person that's managing our paycheck. The one thing I also say is that these bosses, they're controlling your livelihood. And that's a very big responsibility that they don't always take. They've got this detachment of like, okay, well, I'll just lay them off. I'll just get another employee. I'll get somebody cheaper. That's not realistic. At the end of the day, you want to have people that stay a long time, that continue to do work, that grow with you. And the best way to do that is to pay them fairly, and make sure that they're compensated for the value of their services. So.
And that they feel the worth, right? Because, we're human beings. We're
Exactly.
money's important, but like at the end of the day, kind of like you're saying, you gotta.
Well, money's a tool,
Yeah.
it allows us to do what we gotta do and help
Right.
others and just live life.
Well, and to John's point, something as simple as a thank you, something as simple as a $5 gift card. Like it doesn't always have to be this massive gesture that's life transforming. It can be as simple as just actually acknowledging and appreciating the work that's being done. And that can be done from an employee to a manager too.
That thank you to a supplier. He said, in my career, it's been over 40 years, nobody has sent me a thank you note.
Oh,
He's a supplier. He called me immediately. He
Yeah.
says, nothing like it.
yeah, build relationships. I know when my employees' birthdays were. When I went to their house, I watched their kids play t-ball. Like, there's ways that you can show appreciation that don't have to, maybe you can't control the salary. Maybe there's some of those things that are restricted, but there are other ways that you can show appreciation for others to make sure that you're building long-term relationships. Because again, you never know where people are going to end up, right? And as people move around, you may need that resource again. So build the relationships with people that matter, that, have that, ideal that you believe is the right one. And, sky's the limit from there. So I hope I can help you guys with any of your goals, either business-wise, personally, professionally. I hope this was informative for you guys. On the back is a QR code. There's also my business cards there. So if you guys would like to get in touch with me, I am offering a free 1-hour consult for you guys. If anyone would like that, either to help with something in their business specifically or, maybe with their career, happy to help with either one. And I am going to be hosting an in-person business retreat in August here in Chicago. So I'm pretty excited about that. Kind of a new thing I'm adding onto the business. A lot of folks after COVID, they just said, man, I'm tired of this virtual stuff. And I would really like to get away from kind of the day-to-day, like I got to do the laundry and the dishes and all that stuff, and work on myself and work on my business. So this year we've added some in-person retreats where we do, interactive exercises and stuff like this to kind of take things to the next level. We do a lot of meditation and yoga and other stuff as well. So there's like personal balance. So anyways, if you guys are interested, let me know. I hope this was informative, and feel free to take any of the extras if you'd like to share it with anybody else.
So I don't know if you guys are aware of this or not, but the Naperville Area Chamber of Commerce is one of the only chambers in the surrounding area that have a speakers bureau. So if you guys are looking for in-office workshops or lunch and learns or whatever, please take a look at our speakers on our the Chamber website, because they are available for those types of events. So Linda has a couple things to say.
Thank you, everyone. It's always great for me to sit on these business power hours, but today was a very special treat. So if we could just give another just a brief keep on the top of your mind. Just wanted to promote some of our big upcoming programs. State of the City, the big lift is May 8th, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. You can find more information by asking some of the staffers here or reaching out on our website, naperville.net. But again, thank you everyone for joining us this morning, and we will see you next month.
Thank you.